Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring
DeAngelo Hall played for a decade and a half in the NFL.
DeAngelo.
A multiple-time Pro Bowler.
DeAngelo Hall snatches it away and races down the sideline with a man to beat. And Hall will go the distance. DeAngelo Hall with his fourth interception of the game.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Friends. This is usually the Bucher and Blackmon subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can find my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can find me on Twitter at Ric Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. Normally Will Blackmon joins me at this time, but we have a very special guest with Will being overseas working for Sky Sports. So he was unavailable, and stepping in for him is his good friend, one DeAngelo Eugene Hall, 3-time Pro Bowler, 14-year vet. And I'm gonna get. There's a reason that I mentioned your middle name. Works for NBC Sports Washington. You can see him on Fox Sports 1 as well now. DeAngelo, thank you so much for stepping in.
No problem, Rick. I appreciate you having me, man. I love Will. That's my guy. We go back since our days in the Big East battling Virginia Tech and Boston College. So he asked me, and I jumped at the opportunity, man. So looking forward to it.
It's good people, and we certainly appreciate you having you. So a normal thing that I do on Wednesdays is I have a special guest come in, and what we've started to do is we ask about their middle name because there's always a story behind it. And so I want to get the story on your first name as well, but Eugene, how did you get Eugene? Who are you named after? What's the significance?
Oh man, really no significance, man. Eugene was just a name that my mom and dad liked. No one in the family is named Eugene, or any granddads or anything like that down the line. It was just a name that that my parents liked and picked out.
You know what's so funny is that at one point I suggested Eugene as a name for my son and my or a middle name maybe, and my wife had none. I didn't even get out of the starting gate with that. Had no shot. DeAngelo, what's the background of DeAngelo?
Same thing.
Really?
Same thing. It's so weird, and I always loved my name growing up, because I never met any other DeAngelos, where I had some Josephs and some Williams. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of friends who names, that it was multiple of them. And for me, there was never another DeAngelo until a singer came out by the name of DeAngelo. And then the girls started liking me when I got in, high school. Hey, DeAngelo, do you sing like him, Brown Sugar? And so it was just kind of cool, but yeah, no significance to either one of my names. And it's so weird because my brothers, like my older brother, middle name is Collis. His first name is Tyrone. Middle name is Collis. My dad's middle name is Collis. And so there's the significance in that name. But for mine, it was just, they picked some names that they liked.
That's wild. All right. So, we're recording this Sunday night after a full day of football, and it ended with a thriller unexpectedly between the Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles, in spite of not having Carson Wentz and playing in L.A. against what had been a very hot Rams team, ends up winning 30-23. Rams had a shot to maybe force overtime at the end, but they ultimately couldn't pull it off. Mm-hmm. And I want to start here. Are we discovering who the real Rams are? Like, how much? It's not just this week; it's last week. Where do you put them?
I mean, I still put them as one of the favorites to come out the NFC and represent them in the Super Bowl. Man, I still think the Rams are a very talented football team. I think their offense is still very explosive. I think they have a great running game. I think their secondary is good. They have a really good pass rush, obviously led by Aaron Donald. But sometimes teams just have your number. And in this particular instance, you saw, a Philadelphia team who was kind of used to Sean's offense from his days in Washington, and they kind of knew what to expect and how to defend them. And their defense played really, really well. And, I think they're kind of, when everybody found out Nick Foles was going to be back, everybody kind of, their eyes got big because they was like, oh, could this be it? My wife was even talking about it. So you're telling me the guy won the Super Bowl last year, the starter came back, got hurt again, and now the guy's going back in? Like, she couldn't even believe that, that story. And so it was very, very like a Disney movie out there. Nick Foles gets back out there and everything's clicking, man. And, I just think it was just one of those type of games for the Rams where they just couldn't get the ball to bounce their way.
Sunday started, and I thought, okay, so this is the day when the defending Super Bowl champions are basically knocked out of the playoff picture.
Yeah, me too.
I expected Dallas to win, and I expected the Eagles to lose. And I thought, okay, and then we're going to be talking about, okay, so what happened? What's the difference between the Eagles last year and this year? And lo and behold, they are now 7-7. The Cowboys are 8-6. It's right there for them still to win the division and be in the playoffs. And and your Washington team is right there too.
Yeah.
And I
was going to say that.
I would have stuck a fork in them.
To lose too. Yeah, I expected them to lose too. I expected Philly to lose, obviously, to the Rams. And I expected Dallas to have this thing locked up. And that is not the case. All three teams are still in it. All three teams have a chance at it. And so, it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, this Philadelphia team is recreating that magic, it seems. And so, and Dallas surprised me. Dallas was a team I thought was rolling. Yep. I was starting to believe in Dallas. Mm-hmm. I was believing that hype, and that defense was playing well. And I'm thinking Amari Cooper has really been the difference maker to open up this offense and let Ezekiel Elliott run the ball and Dak's kind of running the ball. I was believing in them. And then to see what they did against the Colts has a really, really good defense, probably underestimated.
Yep.
But no way did I think they were that good, because I've seen this Dallas team up close and personal, and I did not think they were going to get shut out up there. So
100%.
It's an interesting division. It's still up in the air, in my opinion.
I don't know whether to love it or hate it, the division, because you can't. You love the parity or the competition.
Rick, they might even can get two teams in.
That is insane.
If Minnesota stumbles, they can get two teams in. Could you believe that? That two of these teams deserve to be in it because they've been so up and down?
No doubt.
It's crazy. It is crazy right now.
So I want to take advantage of the fact that I'm talking to a 14-year Pro Bowl vet who played the defensive back position. Mm-hmm. When we talk about some of these quarterbacks that we saw today that I believe are pivotal in what the NFL looks like right now. And I want to start with Jared Goff. Like, from a DB's perspective, how do you rate him, and as far as what makes him dangerous and what makes him vulnerable?
I think what makes Jared Goff vulnerable is really what makes a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL vulnerable. And that's pass rush. That's making them move their feet. That's getting them to take their eyes from downfield to feel the pressure or move around from the pressure, and just really getting them off that spot. And, Jared Goff can run, but no quarterback in the National Football League is comfortable running out of that pocket, scrambling for their lives, and still trying to find, receivers down the field.
Except Aaron Rodgers and maybe Russell Wilson.
Except there's a couple of them. Except Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, like you said. Patrick Mahomes is one of those guys. But the majority of the guys don't like that. Mm-hmm. And so, if you make him uncomfortable, as Philly was able to do tonight, as the Bears were able to do, he looks average.
Yeah.
He's elite, though, and that's the thing about it. We saw him early in the year, and we were talking about Jared Goff for MVP at one point because he was making every throw, but he was so comfortable in the pocket. He had the run game established. He was able to play action pass, suck some guys up, and dudes were running wide open. He was able to get some really good throws early in the season. So, you've seen the greatness out of him, and, you've seen the bad too.
See, this is why it's hard for me to measure him, and particularly if you put, giving him the elite status, because what they've done, as you mentioned, they've put such great weapons around him.
Yeah.
Now you have a great defense, so it's not like you're constantly having to score. You don't have the same pressure on you. You got a nice wide receiving core. You got Todd Gurley, perennial offensive MVP candidate. You have a good offensive line. You have a great left tackle. So I just wonder, I'm still waiting to see how much is it that the guys around him make him better, and how much does he make those guys better? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Kirk Cousins with Jordan Reed or without Jordan Reed. Like, that was always my thing with Kirk. It's like, when your performance falls off that much, when you don't have certain guys, then that tells me that you need help more than you're providing it. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And, that's what's kind of crazy, because had Jared Goff not had these last two games, we almost would be willing to give him that, that moniker, because last year he had a great season, and this year he would have been performing very, very well. Mm-hmm. And so we were almost ready to say that. And then he reminds you, hold up. Now, before he had that good last year, he was pretty bad, you know? And so that's where that's when you become really, really hesitant when it comes to Jared Goff, because you've seen really, really good and you've seen really, really bad. And so we're just trying to figure out where he really falls, and comparing him long term.
One of the other guys you also mentioned, Nick Foles. And the one thing I see in Nick, and this is, will tell you, I'm a dean emeritus at Body Language University. I'm very good at being able to read, like, oh, that guy's comfortable. Oh, that guy's shook. Like tonight, Jared Goff to me looked shook. He looked very uncomfortable. And it's one thing to be uncomfortable because you're trying to figure things out and they're making you play faster. And then there's being uncomfortable where you're not sure what to do. And like, you feed everybody else's discomfort because they're like, oh, this guy's a little rattled.
Yeah. Nick
Foles doesn't have that to me. If there's one element to him, is that I can't remember seeing him rattled. So things may not go well, but he always looks like he's okay out there. And that goes a long way for me as a quarterback.
Yeah. No, you're right. watching Jared Goff at times, he did look very, very uncomfortable. I mean, you even saw the rush get to him, and he almost pulled the Eli Manning, like he was a Manning. He got down before the rush really got a chance to touch him.
Right. And what about those when he was getting sacked and he kind of flung it? Like,
No, I don't want it. I don't want the ball. Whew. He looked so uncomfortable. And, like I said, last year and the better part of this year, he has not looked like that. He has not forced things. Yeah. He hasn't needed to force anything. They've played great football besides probably against the Saints. And so, this was something that I just did not see coming at all.
See, this is why push comes to shove. You asked me who I like between the Saints and the Rams, and I went with the Saints largely because I know what I'm going to get out of Drew Brees. I know he's not going to be rattled. He can find it in big spots. He's going to die trying.
You went with the safe bet, and I'm a gambler. And so I went with high risk, high reward. Yeah. And so I'm expecting him to catch fire, and I'm expecting Sean McVay to have him coached up and schemed up and put that great football mind to work and get us a win. That's really what I'm banking on, because you're right. Push come to shove, heck, I'm taking Drew Brees 98% of the time. But in this one instance, I'm feeling like, man, I can catch fire right now.
Well, where it's played is going to be a big factor too. Yeah. As Will has said, Brees and the Saints in New Orleans, it's almost a wrap, right?
And it's not looking good for the Rams right now because, these last two games, they pretty much know now it's going to have to go through New Orleans.
Yeah. All right, so one of the other quarterbacks I wanted to get to, we saw the Minnesota Vikings offensively. They kind of struggled all year from what we expected, and they change offensive coordinators. Kevin Stefanski comes in for John DeFilippo, and lo and behold, they put 41 up on Miami, and they had like 200 yards in the first quarter. I mean, they just exploded. You and I talked about this earlier. You think that the offensive coordinator change had a big influence on why they exploded, that this wasn't just happenstance. It wasn't the Dolphins. It was somebody who kind of knew how to take advantage of what the Vikings have.
Now, it was a little bit of the Dolphins not putting forth their best effort, but a lot of just the mindset was the change in coordinator. DeFilippo, I didn't even know if he was ready for this job. And somehow, he became one of the new age, coordinators that everybody kind of was getting behind. And he was, early in the season being even thought of for head coaching jobs. And so, I really didn't buy into it. But the guy who took over, Stefanski, I didn't even know him. He came out of nowhere. But the way in which he called these plays, it was what Kirk Cousins needed. You can't have this guy dropping back, throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. Yeah. You have to establish the run. You have to, when establishing the run, be able to boot and move the pocket. And Kirk Cousins looked so comfortable. It reminded me of some of those plays he was making as a Redskin where they was just using him out of the pocket. He was taking his shots. He even hooked up with old Aldrick Robinson, who he had in Washington as well. But this Minnesota offense looked different because they were able to run the football with Dalvin Cook and Murray. And, man, Dalvin Cook looked like his old self. He looked like the fastest dude on the field on several plays. And so if they can keep running that football and let Kirk Cousins do what he does and not make him feel like he has to make every single play with the skill position guys they have, that Mike Zimmer-minded defense, man, I think they're going to be all right. And that's why I think it's going to be hard for any team that doesn't win the NFC East to get in the playoffs, because I don't think Minnesota will falter.
Yeah. Well, this is certainly a good sign for them, because they weren't looking very promising until the Packers.
They weren't. That's why they had to make that change. They had to try to do something. And I don't know if DeFilippo was just, a malcontent and didn't want to run the football, because I feel like Mike Zimmer always wants to run the football. Yeah. But DeFilippo, for some reason, had this team dropping back a lot and passing the football, and that just wasn't them. You see when they run the football, they're a different team.
You never know the politics within a team. Yeah, and when you sign a quarterback, for as much as you sign Kirk Cousins, sometimes there's a tendency to try to want to prove that he was worth the money that you invested. So you end up, skewing things toward him, right?
Yeah, but Kirk's such a humble guy that... Yeah,
I'm not saying from his part. Yeah,
but for Kirk, I feel like Kirk would be saying, hey, guys, we got to run the football. Yeah. And for them to still not call those plays, I can't see Kirk saying, dropping back 50 times a game, getting hit as much as he's getting hit, not having a success, having a dynamic running back. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. He has a dynamic running back. He has two. And for him to not want to run the football, I just don't see that out of Kirk. And so I feel like it was the coordinator's decision to want to throw the ball as much as he did. And it's just not the way this offense should be ran.
The most promising thing that I heard were the comments by some of the Vikings players afterward about Stefanski, like he trusted them. Like when he called plays, there was no hesitation. They didn't see, it might have been his first time going from quarterback's coach, but they didn't see any hesitation or fear or any of that in the way he called the game. And when I hear players say that, that means the world to me. And I often wonder, DeAngelo, in all your time, like the truth is in the players know. The players know, like, this guy can call games or this guy understands how it works. Have teams in the teams that you've been with, did they ever take your counsel as far as, did they ever ask you like your advice in terms of who they might put in as a position coach, or in any coaching decision did they ever lean on you or anybody else that you knew of that played?
Yeah. Coaches, or, I should probably say more like front office guys, GMs, and, some team presidents that you're close with, and head coaches, if they're making those decisions, they absolutely call players up and kind of see, what kind of guy do you like? They probably have their list of guys, that they're entertaining, and they ask you how you feel about this guy, how you feel about that guy, how you feel about that guy. Yeah. And, it's nice to be able to do that, because when you have a coach that you feel like you can relate to, or you like the style in which he coaches, it makes you want to work that much harder to keep that guy around and make sure your unit is playing well. And, when you're a quarterback coach or a position coach, you tend to have a closer connection with your players. And so for him to be put directly into a position to directly affect the football game and calling plays for his quarterback, something's going on. He knows what that quarterback is telling him in meetings every day. Yeah. Hey, coach, man, why don't DeFilippo let us run the ball a little more? Yeah. Why don't we boot a little bit more? Yeah. And so you saw Kirk a lot more comfortable. That's what I see personally, because I've been in that situation where my position coaches had a little more power in the play calling, and he's starting to call things that we've been talking about in that defensive back room that we like, not things that affect the front, but things that are more geared to us stopping the pass. And so, I think it's a direct correlation.
So one of the other big games today, Steelers and the Patriots in Pittsburgh. Patriots history beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether it's in Foxborough or it's in Pittsburgh, is pretty well known. The Steelers survive. That's about the only way after watching it. 17-10 was the final. Chris Boswell hitting a 48-yard field goal that was like they needed it. He needed it. It put the pressure on the Patriots to have to be able to score. And, the Patriots have that vampire feel. Like you just can't ever think that they're dead. They're going to come back on you, right?
You never can, because they're such a well-coached team. They've been in every situation you can think of. And Bill Belichick will save his best for when he absolutely needs it. And he knows that's in the playoffs. Yeah. So he has some things up his sleeve that's going to mess up a lot of teams that they face. But he's waiting and he's sitting and he's holding that information. I mean, we've seen him do it time and time again. He's one of the best coaches when it comes to scheming up guys and having his team ready to, win when it absolutely counts. And so, though the Patriots did not look like themselves, it was more so players not quite looking like themselves, more so than the Patriots themselves and that machine not looking like themselves. Guys weren't making the plays they normally make. And Pittsburgh has some great weapons, man. Like, we're not talking like they're losing to a team that we don't think can go out there and compete for a Super Bowl as well.
Right. All that said, this team does feel a little bit different. Like Gronk doesn't feel invincible to me now.
They feel older.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom doesn't look like he had 4 shots at the end zone to tie it up. And normally you expect, man, he's going to make something happen. Something's going to happen.
Normally he always makes that play. And that's why he's the GOAT. That's why he's Tom.
But the throws weren't the throws weren't there. And part of it was because there wasn't anybody who came wide open. And I think that can be part of it. And I told you, Julian Edelman, I either thought someone had stole his uniform and there was an imposter in it. Like they would give close-ups after he had a drop or a false start or whatever. And I was like, is that really him? Because and then I thought, maybe he's been drinking, because they did like close up and his eyes were kind of squinty and everything. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe the dude's just like
he was drinking.
He had a few beforehand, or he toked up. I don't know what he did, but he did the way he's playing. I mean, he had uncharacteristic drops. They had multiple. I was just looking up. I wanted to see what the penalties were that New England had, but they had crucial penalties at the worst times. They were so unpatriot-like today. And it took all of that just for the Steelers. Like, the Steelers didn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence in the way this went down.
Yeah,
my
goodness. The Patriots had 14 penalties for 106 yards.
That's not them.
And the Steelers had 4. Yeah. 4 for 40.
I mean, that's
not them.
That's not how the
undisciplined Belichick team. Exactly. That's not what you expect from New England and Bill Belichick. And so that's not the norm. So if they face each other again, that's not going to happen. Right. It's not going to be 14 penalties committed by the New England Patriots.
With that in mind, because we got the Browns that are lurking. We got the Ravens. I'm from Cincinnati originally. We won't talk about the Bengals. But how do you see the AFC North right now? Who do you see winning the division, and do you see 1 or 2 teams coming out of there? What's your take?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, because the Ravens now are in the first seed.
The Ravens are in. I was thinking the Ravens weren't in yet. The Ravens are in, and they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. But you're right, with them using Lamar Jackson the way they're using him, and saying we're going to play great defense and not turn the ball over and run it down your throat. They right now are a team that I don't know how teams can't figure it out, because I'm going to bring that safety down in the box, and I'm going to make Lamar Jackson throw the football. And, when teams is running a lot of that read option, the only way you can stop it, obviously the quarterback run, you have to bring that safety down in the box and essentially play zero and make them throw you out of it. That's why they started incorporating RPOs. I don't know, because right now Baltimore is doing exactly what they want to do to teams, and they're winning. They're winning ugly football games, but they're winning. And so, who does Baltimore have left? The Chargers, which, you probably think the Chargers are going to win that in LA. Yeah. And they have
then the Browns
who aren't laying down for anybody either. So, they could get 2 teams in, but the Colts, the way they're playing, Tennessee, they face a Redskins team who has Josh Johnson at quarterback. He played okay against a good Jacksonville defense, but Jacksonville threw for 20 yards passing. It's hard to win a football game like that. And so, Washington has to play Tennessee, and I think Tennessee's going to ultimately win that game. And so, Baltimore falters. They're not going to get 2 teams in.
The Steelers also have the Saints next week, and they have to play in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Then they have the Bengals the week after at home. It's funny, that tie, what was it? The tie with the Browns at the beginning of the year?
I tell people that all the time. That tie was not supposed to be a tie, but
and that could end up saving them the division.
But it's better than a loss.
No doubt. No doubt.
It is better than they lost. Everybody always, we tied. It's better than a loss, because at the end of the year, when it comes down to the playoffs, you're going to wish you had that tie and not that loss.
So one of the other teams that's lurking, and I can't believe that they are, and I don't know how much to give Frank Reich credit, or Chris Ballard, their GM, or Andrew Luck, and it's so good to see him back. I don't know, as a DB, whether you can feel like it's great to see Andrew Luck back to being Andrew Luck, but just as a football fan.
And nobody's talking about him for comeback player of the year.
Oh, man.
He should win that.
No doubt.
He should absolutely win that, man. He's one of the most underrated guys right now, the way he's playing and the way the Colts are playing.
D, I didn't think that he'd ever be the same. I really didn't.
And he didn't look the same. That's why. He did not look the same.
Yeah.
Earlier in the season, he would not throw the ball past 20 yards.
No.
And I looked and I said, if I'm a DB, Andrew Luck has to show me he going to throw a fade ball 40, 50 yards downfield. He has to show me that I'm playing underneath everything. And nobody did.
Yep.
He came up here and lit up the Redskins. I was at that game looking like, man, Andrew Luck is throwing everything short, and they can't stop him. Now, that Colts defense played lights out as well. They shut everything down Washington tried to do, but Andrew Luck did not look special at all.
Yeah.
And so to see him now, that arm starts, he's starting to look like him, like his old self. And I mean, He's a guy, like I said, who is not getting talked about enough, because he absolutely is the comeback player of the year for me.
So they finished the season playing the Giants and the Titans, and they're at home against the Giants, and they have the Titans. They're 8-6. I mean, they're in that wild card hunt as well. And what a story that would be if they end up somehow making the playoffs again with a healthy Andrew Luck and Frank Reich in his first year. That to me would be extraordinary. I thought this was a rebuilding program, and I just hope they got there fast enough, and Luck showed that he could still play this year. I had no other expectation than that.
Yeah, me too. I totally did not see this coming at all. And that's what makes you even more excited about this team, because now you're like, man, I didn't expect that. Oh my goodness. Oh, and then you start believing that the underdog has a chance.
All right, so the Cowboys, they get shut out. We talked about it at the beginning, but what's your take? You saw enough of him. You've been watching him because he's in the division. Dak Prescott, give me your take on him as a quarterback.
I mean, when I first played Dak, it was his rookie year. And, I was thinking, here's a kid from Mississippi State, more of a, runner of a quarterback. He's not going to beat us with his arm. And I was thoroughly impressed by the kid. Obviously, that year they had everything going for them. They had a defense who was playing great football. That offensive line was healthy. Ezekiel Elliott was running the football very well. He was a rookie as well. Those guys, had a really good 1-2 punch. And, and they had the reliable Jason Witten, who was that veteran leader who kept things, intact. And Dez Bryant was still dangerous enough that he scared you a little bit. And so, when I watch him, I don't feel the same way watching him. I just don't think he's a great quarterback like I did when I played against him. I was like, oh my goodness, this kid is really, really good. And then when I watch him now, I'm just like, maybe he can be one of those guys who can manage a game.
Yeah.
But when Amari Cooper got there, he kind of was, getting going a little bit that made me change my mind. Like, well, maybe he could, develop to a really good guy. But, I think Dak's going to be a guy that they use that they could keep around for about $15 to $18 million. He's never going to be a guy that's going to demand 25 to 30 million and set your franchise back. And anytime you can have a quarterback who you feel confident can run your offense and can catch fire and be consistent and not turn the ball over, that's a bargain.
Yep.
That is a bargain, and that's a bargain at a position that they don't normally get bargains at.
Right.
And you can build around him and put other special players around him. So, like I said, the way that Dallas offense got shut out today, I did not see coming at all. But they're going to win this division, and they're going to have a chance to, if that defense can keep playing great football the way that they've been playing besides this week, then they got a chance to do some damage in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they moved the ball in the first half. They had a blocked field goal. They had a drop TD pass, and then they failed on a 4th and 1 at Indy's 3. So they were moving the ball. They just could not get a score early on. And, even if they scored a touchdown or had a field goal, it wouldn't look quite as bad as you get the complete shutout against the Colts. But nonetheless, we talked about the big change with the offensive coordinator in Minnesota. What are the chances that they're not fully utilizing what they have in Zeke and Amari? Because I feel like a lot of the plays that Amari made, they were throwing it up and he was making a play. He was either shaking the guy he created the opportunities as opposed to say Dak was throwing him open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's kind of been the knock on Jason Garrett as a coach and a play caller, is that his offense isn't creative enough. When guys see guys like Sean McVay and Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and those, Doug Peterson even, Norv Turner, they're finding creative ways to get their playmakers the ball. And so, to have a guy like Jason Garrett who played the game, you would think he would be a little more creative. I can remember saying, he has to let Dak Prescott use his legs.
Yeah. And
them just letting Dak drop back. And I'm like, why not? You have to utilize his legs. They utilize his legs against Jacksonville. They blow Jacksonville completely out the water. And then they go back to just letting Dak drop back. And then they letting them run. And so, they're not as creative of an offense as they need to be. And they aren't putting guys in position. Like you said, Amari Cooper is just showing he is that much better than everybody else.
Yeah. All right.
Quick as lightning.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, look, we've seen what Lamar Jackson did with Baltimore Ravens, being a dual threat. It has helped them. If you look at the last 5 teams they've played, they are the bottom 5 in rushing defense, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it's not just like stacking the box. Like they're inherently flawed when it comes to stopping the run. All right, before we go, I have to ask, do you have a favorite Will Blackmon story that describes Will in ways that people may not necessarily know him, but one of the reasons that you love him, one of the reasons why he's such a good friend, but one of the reasons why he might be a little bit of an oddball too?
Oh man, what's my favorite Will Blackmon story? I've known Will since, like I said, since our days in the Big East, and we both play offense and defense, and I can remember him just thinking he was the next Deion Sanders out there, man. That was always his style. He always had to try to look like the flyest, coolest dude in the room. And,
is that right?
I saw him years later in the league playing against him, and we've always had a kind of mutual respect for each other. It wasn't until I actually got to have him in my DB room where we kind of was like, man, we're like the same dude, because the way we approach football mentally was so different than the way a lot of other guys did it. So go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that you say that there was a little of Neon Deion with him, because he also, in the way that he talks about his approach to the game, he also strikes me as being the ultimate teammate. Like, he was always trying to figure out, how do I play my role that's going to make the game easier for everybody else? Which, I'm not saying Deion wasn't like that, but that's not normally what you associate with a guy who's all about the flash.
Absolutely. Now he was about the flash in appearance, but oh man, just as far as pouring back, Will was a guy who played any position necessary to be on that football field. The ultimate competitor, the ultimate team guy. He made his bones at first as a returner, sacrificing his body, being one of those like, I don't care. I'm going to catch this punt. I'm going to return it. I'm going to take it to the house. Doing kickoffs the same way. And so absolutely, it's kind of very, it's like a contradiction, because I'm saying he's this flashy, flamboyant type of personality and type of guy, but totally opposite when it comes to the personality of that. And so, that's probably what's so uniquely different about Will, man. Most guys that put that flash on tend to be a little bit selfish and conceited, and that's totally not Will Blackmon.
Was there a particular outfit or piece of clothing that he wore in his swag days that you remember? Like what?
I mean, it was no one particular outfit that stood out, but you knew when we were going to games, Black was going to be sharp. He was going to be clean. I mean, one of the flyest dressers, man. And I don't know if it's his style or if it's his wife's style. But somebody is very talented, man, because the dude's always fly.
By the way, did you get the Christmas card from him? Did you see him with the family? So I saw it, and my daughter saw it, and she was like, so how come the kids are standing here and Will and his wife were standing here? And by the way, the cutest kids. I mean, my goodness.
Little models, man.
Yes, absolutely. But we were kind of laughing because we were like, you know what? Will and Shauna look like they're ready to go out to the club, and the kids are just standing to the side like, when's the babysitter get here?
That was set up. Always a performance, man, with Will. Everything's a performance.
No doubt. Well, you performed ably in his stead, stepping in for him for this edition of Bucher and Friends. Subsidiaries, we said, of the United WeCast Network. D, you are welcome here anytime. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate
it. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you.
We will do it again. And tomorrow, Will is expected back. Hopefully he's made his flight, and we will go over the Monday night game and give you all the details on that and see if he's got anything to weigh in on everything that we saw today. In the meantime, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.